Jensen here. Today we are going to make some mini naan sliders with little lamb burgerettes in them and a tomato basil salad and some marzipan almond bars. So let's start by getting our naan prepped up for our get there because you have to let that dough kind of hydrate before we start cooking it out on our skillet. So we are going to start out with a cup of our sourdough discard. So what makes this naan really, really delicious and then just kind of light and fluffy and wonderful is the mixture of both the sourdough discard and the yogurt. Like that combination together is just wonderful. So I'm going to add in our cup of our discard here. And then we are going to add in a half a cup of yogurt. Grab a spoon. Now you want to use like a nice full fat yogurt. Don't want to use a Greek yogurt. I find Greek yogurt doesn't work as well for this. We're going to add in about a half a cup. I'm getting down to my bare minimums on this ginormous cup here, or tub of yogurt. Just a little bit left. I'm going to use up the last of it. Okay. The only thing I ever use this for is naan, and I have used up 5 pounds of yogurt, only making like a half a cup at a time. So you can see I make a lot of naan. So a half a cup of naan in here. Yogurt. Of yogurt. My brain is somewhere else. So half a cup of yogurt in here. We're going to add in 6 tablespoons of water and a fourth a cup of olive oil because we cook our naan on a dry skillet. So we want to make sure that the like you have that nice kind of fat base in here. So we're going to do a fourth of a cup.
Angel says she made your meatballs for her spaghetti and they were amazing.
Oh, good. I love their Italian meatballs. I feel like they're better than anything you can get, pre-made, and they're so delicious and moist. So I'm glad they turned out well for you. And I hope they weren't as difficult. I feel like they're pretty easy to make. So now that we have our discard, yogurt, and our water and oil in here, we're going to we used a whole cup of discard and then 6 tablespoons of water, a fourth a cup of olive oil, and a half a cup of yogurt. So we're going to give this a good quick little whisk together. I'm just using my dough whisk, and you don't have to get it completely kind of whisked in, but just kind of enough to give it mixed around. And then we're going to add in our baking soda, baking powder, and salt. And then last, we'll end up with our flour. Did I forget to set? Yes, I did. No, I didn't. They're right here. So we are going to use 2 teaspoons of baking powder and then a half a teaspoon of baking soda. And those 2 are what's going to give our naan their nice little puff. And then a half a teaspoon of baking soda. And then we're going to do 1.5 teaspoons of salt, which is the same as a half a tablespoon. So I'm just going to use my tablespoon there. We're going to mix that in, and then we'll add in 3 cups of flour. We'll give this a good mix around. Now, when we add and mix this baking soda and baking powder in, it's going to cause this mixture to start like getting kind of really poofy and puffing up. That's what's going to also make our naan so really light and fluffy. It's going to start reacting. That baking soda and baking powder is going to react with both the yogurt and the discard and to really get nice and fluffy. As you can see, it's starting to kind of grow in size. And now we're going to add in 3 cups of flour. So we've got 1, 2, and 3. And you can use either bread flour or all-purpose flour. Either one works for this. And we'll mix that in. And this is going to give you kind of a non-sticky dough. We'll pull it, we'll flip it out onto our counter and give it a good knead. And then you're going to let it sit for, around 10 minutes or so for it to kind of hydrate into the flour. And that's going to allow it to have a little bit more elasticity. So when we knead it up or when we roll it out into our little kind of, we're going to do little small naans, which are going to act like almost like buns for our sliders. Here we go. So we're going to kind of stir this out here and mix this around. Now I'm just going to kind of pull off my little bits here. And then I'm just going to flip this out on my countertop and we're going to give this a good knead. So just like that. And so you might have a dry crumb. Trust me, when you start to knead this together, it's going to come to a nice dough. It's going to have a slight little tack to it, but it's not going to be very, it won't be too wet. If it is too sticky that you can't work with it, what you'll need to do is just add a smidge more flour. But don't add too much because you don't want it to be too stiff. So kneading it all together, and it's going to come into a nice, lovely dough, just like this. I'm just getting all those little loose bits of flour while working them in. And you just want to knead this for just about a minute or two until it's incorporated. And you don't want to just roll it out and start cooking it on your griddle right away because you need that dough to hydrate. You need that flour to soak up that water and that yogurt and those bits.
Judy sent you.
Well, thank you, Judy. We appreciate that. There we go. So again, really work it in there. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing down into my counter and kind of pushing the dough and really pulling against it. And this is just, there's no yeast or anything in this dough. It's just baking soda, baking powder, and sourdough discard. But what's going to give the dough its kind of puff up when we cook it on the hot skillet is just the baking soda and baking powder. But the yogurt and the discard make it such a pillowy, soft, and also has a great moisture to it. So it's a really lovely, kind of like a flatbread base. So we're going to let this sit and hydrate. While that is sitting and hydrate, I'm going to give my hands a quick rinse. We're going to make our marzipan bars that we can pop up in the oven to start baking. So we're going to make kind of this nice, almost like a rich bar base, almost like a blondie, but not quite, but more like just a kind of a bar base for this. We need sugar and our butter. But we're going to start with a half a cup of soft butter on here. And then we're going to cream it with a half a cup of sugar. And I'm making this marzipan bar because when my mom came back from Germany, she brought me back this most ridiculous thing ever. It's a marzipan loaf. It's shaped like a baguette. And I'm like, what am I going to use this in? Because I don't just eat straight up marzipan. But I do love the flavor. But I'm not, my mom, she'll just eat it straight up. But I don't eat it straight up. And I was like, what can I cook with it in there? And I was like, there's a lot of different things. And I was thought about almond pastry. And I was like, oh, there's this bar. And I figured I'm like, we'll do it. We'll grate it over it. But it's like, it's so cute and interesting. It's not, it's just a fun little thing. But it's crazy. It's like a baguette of marzipan, which is like sweetened almond paste. Okay, we're going to add in a half a cup of sugar. We're going to cream this together. A little bit more. So let me grab. And you want to use, again, a soft spatula so that you can really get this together. You could use a hand mixer if you wanted to, but I figured I could cream this fairly easy with just my hands. And then we're going to add in just a yolk of our egg. So it's, again, a really rich bar for the base of it. And here, get this mixed in. But we'll add in a teaspoon of vanilla in just a second as well. But we're not going to add in any baking soda or baking powder. All that's going to, it's going to be pretty dense, but it's going to have our half a cup of our butter, a teaspoon of vanilla, a half cup of sugar. But we're going to add in 1.5 cups of flour here in just a second. We'll get this mixed up. There we go. We're getting there. So now that I have the butter almost creamed into the sugar, I always say, it's easier to do with a hand mixer, but you can definitely cream butter into sugar, no problem. Just make sure your butter is room temperature. Okay, now let's add in, we're done with our sugar. I'll get that out of the way. We're going to add in our egg yolk. So just the yolk, not the whites, because the whites will give too much liquid into the base of this bar, and you want it to be a rich, kind of dense bar.
Yo has a question for you.
What's for dinner tonight? I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to be baking up a sourdough loaf. I do know that. But outside of that, I'm not 100% certain. I don't even know what protein I'm going to use. So I'm not sure. I got to think through. I do know, we'll have our earlier dinner since we have soccer practices, but I'm not sure yet. I have to go sit and stand in front of my fridge and ponder, what do I want to eat? But I've got to eat my lunch first so then I can decide what I want. That's the hard thing. I always let my stomach tell me what I want to eat for dinner. And sometimes I have a craving and I know. Okay, here we've got those egg yolk mixed in here. And now we're going to add in just a little bit of salt and a little bit of vanilla. Where is my measuring spoons? Right here. Okay, we're going to add in a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then we're going to add in just a little bit of salt, about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. We'll cream these in, and then it will be time to add in our flour. But I want to make sure I get that vanilla and everything mixed in here. And then we're going to press this into the base of our pan. And then we will grate our marzipan over it and sprinkle some slivered almonds over it and bake it up. So we've got this cream together. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Now we're going to mix in 1.5 cups of flour. So got 1 and 1/2 cups.
You have a question. Do you make the hibachi steak meal ever for dinner?
I do. And I do a lot. A lot of times I do it in the summer because I'll do it I'll grill up, a flank steak for it. But I also make like the Spam fried rice a lot, or lo mein noodles. My kids absolutely love that. But yes, I do. It is a delicious, delicious meal on here. My kids, they would have that every single week if I would allow them to eat it. They really, really love it. It's just so good. And the funny thing is, I had been getting low on all of my like kind of sauces and stuff that I used for Asian cooking, and I just restocked. I got more miso paste. I got more rice vinegar, all my little things that I need. I restocked on everything. So I'll have to do some Asian cooking soon. I restocked all of my vinegars because I was down to just balsamic vinegar. And I'm like, balsamic vinegar is great, but it cannot be used in everything. Okay, we've got this kind of a nice kind of crumbly base. When we push it into our pan, it will form kind of like a cookie bar because you see when I hold it together, it's got a nice, it holds together nice and firm. So think about like a shortcake, but sweeter, a little bit more like a cookie than a shortcake. Let me grab a little bit of nonstick spray. Where are you hiding in here? It's literally in my hand. We're going to spray an 8 by 8 inch pan. There we go. We're going to put our kind of crumb here in there, and then we're going to press it down to form our bar base. So spread it out, and you need to press it firmly because you want it to make that nice, rich, delicious bar. So we're going to press it down. And once we've got it down, if you don't press it down firmly enough, then when you kind of go to, and after it cools, when you go to cut it, it will fall apart. So do make sure it's nice and firm so that when the butter does melt, that it can fully form together. Give it a good push down everywhere. Okay. Go wash my hands real quick. That way I can move our dough a little bit farther away so it doesn't get any sweetness on it. And now for the fun part. I'm going to use my marzipan log or loaf here. Now, I don't need this whole loaf. This is about a pound, a little bit more. It's 500 grams. And I was like, gosh, I need only about 8 ounces and 500 grams. And then I was like, oh, a pound of butter is 456 grams. So then I'm like, okay, 8 ounces can be half of this. So I need about half of it. That was my logic there. What happens when you don't know the metric system all that well, or the conversion between the two. So we need just about half of our marzipan here. But again, this is, you can use just regular almond paste for it. So cute. And then what you're going to do is you're going to grate it over the top so that you have these nice little almond like pieces that form up. Now, if you've never had marzipan, it is like a sweetened almond paste. There we go. I'm going to grate it, and then we will spread it out a little bit more evenly. And now I will say this is easier to grate than what you get in the little tubes. So maybe the little baguettes, they're onto something with this. See, I'm used to it. My mom normally brings me back little marzipan pigs, which are just these cute little pigs. They're just pink and they're dyed and they're cute. And I never eat them, but they're really adorable and they just sit around for a while. But this, I was like, oh, I've got to find something to use. This is a lot of usable marzipan. Okay. Getting down to, I'm going to grate it all the way down for it. There we should be about good on here. And now what you're going to do is you're going to spread it out. And this is going to, so our base of our bar doesn't have a lot of sugar in it, but this is nice and sweet on its own. So it will really add a great flavor to it. And when it heats up, it's going to kind of melt together. So let's spread it out, try to get it as evenly. I know it kind of almost looks like cheese, but it's not. And then we're going to sprinkle about 1/4 a cup of slivered or sliced almonds over it. And then this is going to bake at 350 for about 25 minutes. And while this is baking, we'll work on our little burgerettes and our naan. We'll roll them out. And when it's done baking, you're actually going to dust it with a little bit of powdered sugar on the top. And then you'll cool and you can slice it up and enjoy our little bars here. Okay, let's go pop this in the oven. And this thing's nice, heavy little bar. Feels good. Smells good. It smells like marzipan. It smells delicious. It's funny. I love marzipan. I just don't like to eat it straight up. I'm not like my mom. She can sit there and she would just slice off that baguette set for 25 minutes. Oh yeah. She'd probably have it there and cut herself a little slice. Okay. Well, let me get, since my hands are now covered in a little bit of marzipan, let's get them washed up. I'm going to turn on my skillet here and we're going to let it start to warm up. That way, when we start to roll out our dough into our little mini naans, then it'll be nice and hot to cook it up, because that's typically the slowest thing when it comes to making like naan, is your griddle being hot. Let's shape up and make our little lamb burgerettes so that we can cook them up. I'm going to kind of make almost like a lamb meatball with some Greek seasoning in there. So I have 1 pound of ground lamb, and we're going to make a little panade to kind of bind it together to hold it, but it will also keep it nice and moist and tender instead of just doing a straight up burger. Gives it more flavor, a little bit more base. So we're going to take our slice of bread and we're going to soak it with a bit of cream, enough to make the bread turn into a paste, but not sopping wet where it's sitting in a puddle. So think about when you're making French toast. That's kind of the amount. When you've made that custard base and you've soaked it up, you want your bread to kind of be like that texture. And then we're going to add in 1 egg. And for our spices, we're going to use some onion powder, about 1/2 tablespoon. And then I have some Greek freak seasoning, which is just kind of a blend of some Greek spices, but it's really nice on here. And we're going to use about 1/2 tablespoon of it. And then we're going to use some garlic salt. We're going to use about 1 teaspoon of garlic salt. Okay. I'm going to get a pair of scissors out. And let me grab a little cutting board so we can shape our little sliders up kind of on here once we have it. So I'm going to start and kind of work my hands through to make our panade, which is going to just really be squeezing the bread and the egg and these spices and herbs through my hands until we've got a nice kind of herby paste. And this does, one thing, it makes a nice base for it. It rehydrates those spices as well. And then it just will create a really wonderful binder that will hold our meat together.
Marianne sent you.
Thank you, Marianne. We appreciate that. Here we go. And also a nice thing about making the panade, it really does allow for those herbs and those spices to go throughout and really flavor your meatball fairly evenly throughout the whole, all of your meat. Okay. Let's get our lamb sliced up, or in here, we're going to add in 1 whole pound of ground lamb. Left a little bit in there. And this is pretty much the same technique. You're just going to reach through and squeeze your hands through the base of that panade and your meat and just work it all the way through until it's completely mixed together on it. And that's going to help bind your meat together. It's going to keep it nice and tender and moist, softens it up a little bit, and will help keep it shaped during the cooking process.
Mary Lou said she switched to this method and they turn out amazing.
Oh, good. I'm glad. It is, I will say, the using this instead of breadcrumbs really does make a difference. It keeps your meat base from, instead of going dry and spongy, it keeps it really moist and tender, prevents you from like over baking them. And it really does. And it works for a variety of different meats on there. I use it for all of my meatballs, and it is a game changer. I even use it for my meatloaves because it does make a big difference. Okay, we've got our meat base here. Now we're going to shape up our little lamb patties here, and then we can start kind of cooking them off. I'm going to do kind of, let's see, get them shaped up. I'm going to wash my hands, and then I'm going to coat them with a little bit of oil so that I can get a good shape on them. Okay. So if you ever have like your meat base and it's a little bit, sometimes with chicken or lamb, they're a little bit more tender meat. So they, where's my oil? They're a little bit more sticky. If you ever have a stickier meat that you're having a hard time shaping up, use a little bit of olive oil. So I'm going to pour some in my hand. I'm actually going to make a little base so that when I need it, I can just rub my hands in it. And this way you create essentially a non-stick surface on your hands. And now I've got perfect little burgerettes.
You have a question about lamb. Is it gamey tasting?
It has a mild gaminess to it. It's not too bad. I really love it. My kids love it. It's a very, very tender meat on here. And I will say it is delicious. And it works really well with Greek seasoning and also sage. I love to just change it up and have it just like a slightly different protein than ground beef. And it's really lovely, especially like this is ground lamb, but lamb roast is also really, really lovely. My kids really love lamb roast and lamb chops on there. It does have a slightly gaminess to it, but it's not overpowering. And it's not a tough meat. Like bison, has a little bit of a gamey meat, but it's a very tough meat because it's a very lean meat. Lamb is a very, very tender meat. Now I'm making them nice and flat because they will contract in and they'll get a lot smaller, but I want them to be big enough for our little sliders here. Here on it. So we're shaping that up. We've got our nice kind of Greek seasoning in here. We made our lovely panade base for it, which also helps the meat stretch a little bit farther for it, but we'll have nice little sliders on it. And it looks like our skillet is getting nice and warm, so we can start rolling out our naan. Wash my hands well. Okay. Now that our skillet's hot, I'm going to turn it down to low. I like to heat it up high and then I'll turn it down nice and low so that we'll cook it over a lower temperature, but gives it a little bit longer for it. Let me grab my rolling pin and a dough cutter. Actually, I have my dough cutter here. And for this, I've got 8 little burgerettes. So I'm going to need 16 pieces of naan. And we're doing kind of smaller ones, so I should be able to do 4 at a time. Let's see if I can make this into a ball. Now, when you roll them out thin, they will get puff up and they'll get a little bit fatter. And I should be able to um, cook 4 up at a time. Now, normally you can make these really big, and I'll do them big and use them kind of like a taco. They'll make almost like, like a naan sandwich for them, and we'll make our thing for it. I've got my little rolling pin here, and we're going to roll this out. So I have lots of recipes where we do them nice and in the big full-size ones, but here's our smaller ones. We'll roll it out nice and small like this. When you pick them up, they're going to shrink in just a little bit. And we're going to pop them on here, and they'll start to kind of cook up for it. And when you take them up, we'll cook them up on both sides, and then we'll coat them with a little bit of butter. And that butter will allow them to just keep a nice, really soft, buttery edge to them. Here. And perfect. Not the most circular one, but as you can see, they do kind of shrink in just a little bit for it. I'm going to rotate. Again, you want to cook them on a dry skillet for it. I'm going to turn my skillet over here so that it can start heating up and we can start cooking our burgerettes on here. Because they're so thin, they will cook up nice and fast. Let me grab this out so when our naan is done, we can take it off and have it going. Once our skillet's hot, we'll slide that on. But while we're waiting, let's we're going to make a little kind of tzatziki sauce to go on and then we've got our little tomato basil kind of salad to go with it. So let's check. These are going to cook a little bit faster than our bigger naan, so I just want to keep an eye on them. Make sure when they're ready to flip them over. Okay, let's grab a little bowl here for our salad.
So will you cook them with a garlic butter or any sort?
I'm going to brush them with butter, just warm butter. We're going to make a little kind of like a tzatziki sauce to go on our little burgerettes for our thing. So I'm just keeping them plain, but yes, you could definitely do like a garlic butter, throw on some parsley, garlic salt, done totally like lots of different spices on there. A lot of times we just keep them plain as they are. My kids love to just dip these also in hummus. Sometimes I get a mutiny on my house when I run out of regular hummus in here when I make naan, because again, that is their favorite thing to way to eat them is with hummus. Okay, let's see. Looking good. Get that. So nice, beautiful, and steam cooking it up. I'm going to turn it. I've got it on about a 3 now. And once they and you see they get a little bit fatter, a little bit thicker on there. And then we'll roll out our next one for it. We're cutting up our tomatoes here. I'll dice up some red onion. And this will be just a little fresh tomato salad to go with, on the side. A little fresh. I feel like when you eat Greek food, it needs to be a nice fresh salad. Okay, that should be good. And then I've got some basil. We'll chop this up, and then some red onions. And then we'll make our tzatziki sauce. I wish I had fresh mozzarella or feta, because then I would toss it in here as well, but I don't. And red onion. Finally on to my next red onion. Finally used up my other one. But like I said, red onion is when I'm making a salad or something fresh is when I use it. But one will last you forever because it's really not a great cooking one. It's better, yes, more like as a condiment on the side, dip, salsa, salad, Give this a nice little dice. And we'll throw some of these in. We'll save some of it for tzatziki sauce, but get some of these in here. There we go. And then we're going to give these a little drizzle of balsamic reduction, which is kind of balsamic vinegar that has been reduced down, is a little bit sweeter. Has great kind of flavor, nice tanginess, and then just a sprinkle of garlic salt. There we go. And then we'll stir that up here in just a second. Let's see, my skillet looks like it's nice and hot, so I can add on our little patties. And those are getting close. Let's get these guys going. We'll get our little lamb burgerettes on here. And since I, used olive oil in my hands when I was coating them, I didn't really need to add any more to my skillet because it should coat them up, have enough on there. And lamb is kind of a fattier meat too, so we should have a good amount in there.
Can you go over the seasoning for the lamb?
Yes, so for the lamb, we used onion powder, garlic salt, and Greek freak seasoning. And then we made a panade as well using egg, bread, and cream on there. So kind of help bulk it up, but also will help keep it nice and moist. So here we've got our nice little Greek salad, or a tomato and basil salad that will be nice and fresh. And then let me grab a small little bowl for our little tzatziki sauce that we're going to have to kind of drizzle on our little naan burgerettes. Let me check over here, see how we're doing. That one feels done. You can kind of tell when you feel them. Okay, we're going to take these guys off. And then I'm going to get my butter, and we're going to just rub our butter over them. You want to use a good room temperature butter, and that way it will just coat them. And it helps keep your little naan nice and soft and pliable. Now, when you're doing it like a little burgerette like this, it doesn't matter quite as much, but when you're going to do it and kind of keep it like a sandwich, it matters a bit more.
Oh, where do you find ground lamb?
My local grocery store has it. So, I shop at Publix, Kroger, and they both have it. Aldi's has it. Amazon Fresh has it. So you just kind of have to look around. It's typically, in the section right by like the ground beef. They have like a really small section of it. Okay, let's flip these guys over. Beautiful. Lovely. So you have a nice crispy edge on it because, again, you do have that bread and that cream and that egg in there. So it's going to crisp up nicely, which will add great texture to your little burgerettes. Roll these guys out. Get our next round going. Here. Shape them up. I always like to kind of pinch them into a little ball. Helps me get a slightly rounder shape to it, especially when I'm making my big ones. Here. Roll them out fairly thin because, as you can see, when I rolled them out, they do kind of contract in. So you don't want to leave them too like where the ending size is because then they'll turn into a really thick mound.
What temp do you cook the lamb to?
I will cook them where they're kind of, since these are really thin, they'll kind of cook all the way, but I like a light pinkness in it. So cook them similar to how you would cook your ground beef. So if you like your burgers medium rare, cook them to a nice medium rare on it. These are a thinner burgerette, so they'll probably cook through fairly well, but I don't want to overcook them because, again, I like a more medium rare on my hamburgers, stuff like that. Get these on. We've got our next ride. Again, cook them on a nice dry skillet. I'll grab a little plate that we can put our first round on. And these are looking done. Beautiful on both sides. Nice and crisp edges. Okay. And do you see just the size when you pop them on there, how much they contract in, just like with hamburger, because lamb is like a higher fat meat.
Do you ever add cheese to lamb burgers?
Lamb, since it does have that slightly gamier one, it's not going to lend itself to a lot of cheeses. But since this is kind of got the Greek flair to it, you could do like a feta cheese on there, and that I feel like would play well with it. But for the most part, I don't add it on there. We are going to be making kind of a tzatziki sauce, which will add a nice kind of freshness to it, but I don't treat it like a hamburger. I treat it a little bit differently. We'll get this going. Let's get our base for our tzatziki sauce going. So I'm going to use some heavy cream, pour in about like a fourth a cup or so in here. And then we're going to squeeze some fresh lemon juice over it to kind of turn it into a cream fraiche. Essentially, the acidity of the lemon juice will cause the cream to curdle. There we go.
You have a question? Do you make any recipes with ground turkey?
I often don't use ground turkey. I'd prefer ground chicken over ground turkey because I find that ground turkey is a very dry meat, and ground chicken, very similar flavor profile, but it is a bit more moist. And I feel like those two you can sub out. I have used ground chicken for a couple of recipes for it, but again, they're not my most favorite proteins to use, simply because they are a bit drier in there for it. But I have used it. I think last week I used ground chicken to make a chicken ranch wrap using like a tortilla where you season up the chicken and put it on the tortilla and crisp it up. And I've used ground chicken before to make some meatballs as well for it. We did like an Asian meatball on it.
And can you go over the seasoning again for the lamb?
Yes, for the lamb we did some onion powder, garlic salt, and Greek freak. We made a panade using egg, bread, and cream, and kind of mix those all together. I'm going to flip our hamburgers here. And not our hamburgers, our burgerettes, our little lamb burgers. Slide those guys over. Here we go. Beautiful. And let's finish up with see if these are ready. A little bit longer on each side. I turn it up just a smidge more, and we'll finish up. So I've got in here minced up red onion, and some fresh dill. And now we're going to add in some fresh baby cucumber on here. And then we'll add in some garlic salt. And that will be a nice, really fresh flavor to our, like a little, our sauce to go in our little burgerette here. Our little lamb sliders, I should say. And then, okay. And then we're going to add just a sprinkle of garlic salt. Oh, thank you, Paula. We appreciate that. I'm going to grab a little spoon here. Give this a stir. And we'll see how it's starting to thicken up in there. I might add just a smidge more fresh lemon juice in there because, again, that lemon juice is going to cause that sour cream or that fresh cream to thicken up on there. And that's going to be our tzatziki sauce to put on our little burgerettes. Here we go. They're looking pretty good. Toast them up. Flip them over. They're done on there. And then I'm going to toast them. Maybe I'll flip them over and do a little bit more on there to get them a little golden on there. A little bit higher on there. May have had my skillet a smidge low. You know, when you heat it up for a long time on the first round, it goes by pretty quick. Beautiful. We'll get our little lamb burgerettes over. Looking good. Beautiful. Okay. Pop this off over here. And we've got just about done over there. Perfect. Turn that up a smidge. And then when we come back, those should be all ready. And then we can actually get ready to serve up. Let me give this a quick stir now that we added a little bit more in.
Randy, Santiago.
Oh, thank you, Randy. We appreciate that. There we go. Looking delicious. This is our tzatziki sauce using fresh cream, fresh lemon juice, dill, diced up red onions, and fresh cucumbers. So it's a really bright, happy sauce that will actually pair really well with the kind of the more earthiness of the lamb. So they kind of work well together. In our oven right now, we have our marzipan bars. So marzipan is like a sweet almond paste. We have a kind of a cookie bar base to it, and then we grated our marzipan over it, sprinkled it with some almonds, and now we're gonna pop it out. Look how that nice, beautiful golden brown. And then we're gonna sprinkle it with a little bit of powdered sugar for us. Now, kind of like a brownie or whatnot, we can't quite serve these up yet. They need to sit for just a second so that bar base on the bottom has a minute to hold together, or it will start to kind of crumble apart. But let's get our powdered sugar out. You've got that nice toasted almond on the top. Yes, making sure that's powdered sugar. And then you're going to just dust it over the top here. This is going to add just a really nice bit of sweetness to it. Again, you have that sweetened almond from the marzipan, and in the base of our cookie bar, we have just a little bit of, half a cup of sugar in there, but it's almost like a nice kind of mix, like a sweetened shortcake, or shortbread, I should say, not a shortcake. Here we go. Dust that over. Get it all the way around. Beautiful. And perfect. Don't need a lot of powdered sugar on there, just enough to give a nice dusting over it. I'm not one to put a whole bunch on there, but just enough to get a nice little little extra pop of sweetness. Okay, these are on their little final toasting on it. So I'm going to get a plate out and we'll get ready to serve up. I'll shape up because I don't need to keep you guys around for our final last little burgerettes because I can shape, or my little naans, I'll shape those up here. But let's get a plate out and we can get ready to serve up our little lunch here. Let's first get these guys off, and then I'm going to bring this over here. That way we have it nice and ready, front and center. And perfect. So we'll take these guys off since they're ready. I'm going to rub them when you take your little naan off, you want to rub them with a little bit of butter. That helps keep the outside of your naan nice and soft and flexible. If you don't do it, then your naan can crack. Okay, well, let's build our little burgerettes here. So we'll start on here. We're going to take our little naan here. So we've got both down. We're going to place our seasoned lamb base on here, made with ground lamb. We seasoned it with Greek freak, a little garlic salt, and a little bit of onion powder. We're going to add a nice bit of our fresh tzatziki sauce on here, which will give it a nice blast of freshness. It's made with, our cream fresh from cream, lemon juice, diced up red onions, dill, We'll put our second naan on top on there. So we have our little naan, which is, and then we're going to serve it with our fresh tomato basil salad, which is made from cherry tomatoes diced up, red onions, fresh basil, and a nice kind of balsamic glaze. And then for a sweet treat, once the bar has completely set, we have our marzipan almond bars. We have a sweet cookie bar base on the bottom with sweet marzipan and slivered almonds and dusted with a little bit of powdered sugar for a nice little treat. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate some of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page and search for what we made. So our mini naan sliders and our marzipan bars, and you can always watch and cook along with us again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my hex-clad griddle pan, my knives, my cutting boards, all the different things that I use in the kitchen I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.